Welcome to the 12th District, where we cover business and politics every week here on the NCW Life channel. I am Kerry Condata. Today, we are featuring Representative Jim Walsh from the Aberdeen-Hoquiam area. That's District 19. He's a good friend of mine and a good friend of the state of Washington, working all over the state, doing a great job. We'll hear from him and a little bit of a coastal report later in the show. But first, we're going to have a little news report for you with some fun stuff that you may not have heard during the week. We'll be right back. All right, just a few minutes, we're going to have Jim Walsh on board. But before that, a couple of news stories. I found a couple of kind of funny ones. Well, this one's not so funny. I think the lead story here was coffee shops grounded. A new state administrative code, which was changed back in March, says that the small independent coffee stands that you've been used to dealing with here in Wenatchee and everywhere else now have to have full plumbing facilities. That's a new change that says they have to have a restroom available for staff and customers, hand washing sinks, fresh water supply, waste collection, and at least one utility type sink for cleaning and dishwashing. So this is a significant change, and most of these small coffee stands don't have this. It was put in place on March 1st, but they have a 6-month period where they're going to be not enforcing it. But on September 1st, that sounds like it's going to be enforced. Now, there are some variances that can be applied for, and there is some grandfathering going on, but the fact is it looks like coffee stands are going to have to be, for the most part, fully equipped. The ones that aren't not only may shut down, but I mean, of course, can't be sold or transferred either. So this has got a lot of folks up in arms that have been doing this for a long time. And, I guess the question is, are people dropping dead right and left from coffee stands? I don't think so. I'm not sure why this needs to be done, but another insult to small business in Washington state. Well, speaking of small business, the State Liquor and Cannabis Board, and this one, I didn't make this up, has approved liquor licenses for axe-throwing businesses. So evidently there is a lot of new axe-throwing businesses out there that have applied for liquor licenses. What could go wrong? And of course, the Liquor and Cannabis Board initially didn't allow that, but now says they are working on rules to create a safe operating plan to mix alcohol and axe throwing. Again, I'm not sure how that could what could go wrong? All right, here's one for you. Most federal agencies, we're wondering about, of course, economically, whether we're going to have a recession. That's the biggest question, is when. I think it's going to happen, but when is this recession going to happen? Well, the federal agencies monitor unemployment, low sales and production, GDP, and other variables, but Professor Jacobs from the University of Washington says folk indicators, F-O-L-K, folk indicators are actually more reliable, and he has a couple of them of interest. One is called misplaced groceries. When you start to see a lot of misplaced groceries in stores, that is a definite sign that there is a recession happening. Now, that means if you see peanut butter in the sugar section or different things where people actually take something and then put it back somewhere else, because what he says is that people are having to make these difficult choices, and therefore groceries start to get misplaced all over the store. So actually an interesting indicator. But here's one that's even more fascinating. He's done research on this. Must have been interesting. A loss of business in strip clubs is now considered a leading indicator of recession. That's right. There has been a tracking of strip clubs for years, and it seems to coincide that when their business drops off, the recession happens, maybe simultaneously, I don't know. But that research, again, must have been very interesting for a UW professor. So look for misplaced groceries and a drop in the strip club business, and we're on our way into recession. All right, well, the state also has some predictions. The chief economist, Steve Lurch, using more conventional methods, says that actually inflation and energy prices in Washington state should level out towards the end of 2023. So this is a new report from the state that says we have a ways to go. Prices are still going up, energy costs are still going up, probably won't level off till 23, and probably no relief until 24. And he also makes the statement that wages are not currently keeping up with the price increases in Washington state. I think we all know that. All right, catalytic converter. We've made another #1. Washington State has hit #1 in catalytic converter theft. It's up 10,000%. Yes, I said 10,000% from 2019, with a total so far just in the first 4 months of this year, 1,533 catalytic converters have been stolen from cars. Now, of course, car theft is up as well, but the catalytic converters, we are #1 in the U.S., another high point for Washington State. Speaking of the legal side of things, or the law, Snohomish County is down 27 sheriff's deputies and said things could get worse, and they're cutting services accordingly. And that is creating a major problem for people in Snohomish County, because not that far away in Seattle, which, by the way, as we mentioned last week, is expected to lose 200 more officers this year. Violent crime in Seattle is up 23%. This is to date this year. Homicide's up 54.5%. Robberies up 22%. Aggravated assaults up 26%. And shooting and shots fired are up 82%. That's so far this year in Seattle, which is not too far from Snohomish County. And yet both of them are losing police officers. Last but not least, fuel prices. We are the 5th highest in the nation. I think we've been holding that for a couple of months now, that title. However, Idaho has called a special session to possibly reduce or eliminate their gas tax for a period of time. That's something that has not been considered in Washington State. Well, speaking of crime and issues around that, we're going to come back and talk to Representative Jim Walsh from the Aberdeen-Hoquiam area, that's District 19, about those and other issues that he's seeing out and about the state. So we'll have kind of a coastal report when we return. Welcome back to the 12th District. Well, I am really pleased to have this next guest on, a friend of mine from the House of Representatives. It is Representative Jim Walsh, all the way from the Aberdeen-Hoquiam area. That would be District 19. Jim, good to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, Kerry. Good to see you again. It's been a little while.
It has been. We haven't visited for a while, and we wanted to kind of hear about what's going on out on the coast. And of course, statewide, you're doing a lot of traveling. Obviously, it's an election year, and you're out on the road. But tell us a little bit about what's going on in Aberdeen-Hoquiam. Has anything changed there for the better or for the worse?
Well, we're still dealing with some issues out here, ones that people anywhere in the state will find familiar. We're worried about some of the fentanyl and the drug, hard drug use. We're dealing with our homeless housing issue here, although we're a little ahead of the curve, and as some parts of the state are, in that we've got a couple of nonprofit groups who are really working well on getting that transitional housing, getting people off the streets and into services, into some kind of sobriety programs. I mean, so many of them are addicted, and so helping them get on the road to a better life, a better path, and then transitioning into permanent housing. And so by working with a couple of these, they're not governmental agencies, they're private charitable groups. The best known of them in our area is a group called Community House on Broadway out of Cowlitz County. But they work in Lewis County in a couple areas too. They've been very effective at getting people off the streets, and we're looking to try to expand those successes to other places and helping get people back on a better track. Economically, the ports are always the engines of our economic growth on the coast, and the ports of Grays Harbor and the Port of Longview particularly are doing very well. A lot of bulk material, a lot of bulk agricultural material, foodstuffs for export, keeping those ports busy. The Grays Harbor Port particularly does a lot of that ag export. The Port of Longview is a little bit more diversified. They do a lot of things, but those are the good signs here. And politically, the area has become very conservative. It's always been conservative socially and culturally, and in the last few years, it's become conservative politically too. So our county commissioners and even our city councils are taking a more common sense, constitutional, conservative approach to government, and that's a good thing.
Well, the 19th district has had probably the biggest change of any district in the state that way in the last several years. You started that several years ago, but it is kind of amazing to see the transition there. It's good to hear the ports are doing well, because I know it's been a struggle to get economic development in that area. You guys have had some really good ideas for LNG and other types of plans that just haven't come to fruition, so it's good to hear that the shipping's working. And the homeless thing is exciting to me, because I haven't seen a lot of solutions, and I know that Wenatchee is starting to face the same issues. So if this model works, we'd love to hear more about that for sure. So let's look at some of the other issues statewide. Obviously, gas prices are a huge concern, but what else are you hearing out there when you're traveling?
Well, Kerry, it's a lot of the same issues that we hear all around the state. A lot of concern about crime, public safety, and people are pretty sophisticated about it. They understand that in this state we've experimented with what I call anti-cop laws. The supporters take a different look, but they're variations on defund the police. Really, that's the kind of political origin of these ideas, and we put them into practice, and they haven't worked. The laws we put into practice in Olympia have restricted the ability of frontline law enforcement, your city police officers, your county sheriff's deputies, and state patrol. They can't effectively enforce the law. And the point that most people have really got where they understand it and they want to do something about it is these restrictions on pursuit, that law enforcement can't chase criminal suspects when they flee in a car or on foot or whatever the case is. And I'm really encouraged how much people seem to get that. They understand that we tested with this new law that raised the legal threshold for when a law enforcement officer can chase. They understand it didn't work, and they want to get back to the previous legal standard where an officer could use his or her professional training, make a reasonable suspicion judgment that an individual was a criminal suspect, and chase that suspect. And I'm encouraged that people get it, and they want policy that's going to give the police the chance to chase bad guys again.
Well, it seems reasonable to me, and I'm just amazed that did not pass in session. You guys did a few little tweaks, but that was the one that everyone talked about, and it didn't get done. And I know you're part of our program on the initiative side to get that to the legislature this year, which we hope happens. In terms of politics, you said your area has gone more conservative. Do you see other areas in Washington state moving that direction? I mean, the peninsula we've talked about for years. There's no reason that shouldn't be more Republican, but yet it's been tough to get Republican representation up there.
I think it is heading that way, Kerry. I mean, shoot, even the Seattle Times just ran an opinion column, I think it was just today or yesterday, saying that even in Seattle, people are trending more conservative. And it's not about left or right. It's about competence, Kerry. It's about the ability to run government effectively, keep the streets safe, keep the streets paved, deliver basic services in a good way without constantly raising taxes, without playing budget monkey business games, doing the basic good things of government competently. What we've had in this state is just some really incompetent governance. Murderers being let go from jail, of course, the crazy unemployment scams where we shipped hundreds of millions of dollars out to other countries. We've had some real competence problems. And I think what people are looking for is that competence. Just do the basic things right. Don't try to do crazy new stuff. Give us, the people, the basics of a good quality of life, and leave the green technology and windmills and solar power. Leave that to later. Just concentrate on doing the basics, the essentials in the now. for us. And I think that's what we're going to see in those races that you mentioned up on the Olympic Peninsula. I think we're going to see some of them in some of the legislative and local races in the suburbs around Seattle. Pierce County, the east side of King County, Snohomish County up to the north a little bit. I think we're going to see those areas say, leave the Republican-Democrat piece aside. We want common sense, basic competence in our government. And that right now means a conservative vote.
Well, and I think, of course, as a budget guy for all the years I was there, this budget's incredibly large. It's creating a bow wave that if we do have a slowdown, and it looks like recession is probably going to happen, we're going to have a mess in Olympia, and that's where you're going to need this talent to use common sense to put it back on track. We are one of the only states, I think the only state, that didn't do some sort of tax reduction or rebate during the COVID years. And it's just amazing when you had the surpluses you had. I would have never believed a $64 billion budget. When I started, it was $23 billion. It wasn't that long ago. And 64, if you would have told me that 2 years ago, I would have said you were crazy. Is that part of the issue too? The taxation is also getting tough, especially property taxes.
Yeah, and that's the one we hear about the most, Kerry, is the property taxes. So we need to find a way to give middle-class people, not rich, not poor, the middle-class people, a little bit of relief on their property taxes. I mean, they don't mind paying some taxes. They don't mind the money in property taxes going to schools and to basic services. But the property taxes have really jumped in the last few years. Some of that is because property values have jumped, but some of it, as you say, is because government spending has jumped. And the property tax kind of trails those expenditures, and people are beginning to get to the place where they don't trust that their money's being well spent, and they're hesitant to give any more, and they want to see some kind of relief because they think that money's being wasted, and I can't, Kerry, they're right. It is being wasted. It's not being used.
Well, I could tell you, I mean, from the years of 23 billion up to 37 billion, I've gone through all that. I haven't seen any improvement in government service in this state. If anything, things have gotten worse. And so we've got some work to do there. Now, you touched on property taxes and housing. What is the housing situation looking like out on the coast? I mean, Seattle's ridiculous. We're seeing, huge increases even here. Is the coast starting to settle down a little bit, or is the housing prices still going off the charts?
We're still going up pretty sharply, Kerry. Particularly in the Grays Harbor area, because it was one of the least expensive places to buy real property, real estate or houses. It had the farthest to climb, and it has climbed. The prices here are still a little softer, a little lower than they are in part of the Puget Sound, central Puget Sound area, but they're rising, and we're dealing with the same issues we see around the state. Not enough inventory, literally, not enough houses, townhouses, apartments coming onto market, and what we get on the coast too is some developers say, if I'm going to go through all this bureaucratic hassle and fees and time, I might as well go build in one of the urban cores because I can get more for a unit there.
Sure.
There are a few pockets where there's been better growth. There are a few developments right on the water that have done well. There are a few developments inland near the I-5 corridor that have done well. But all in all, we're behind where we ought to be in terms of housing units, just like the state in general.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but I want to have you follow up anything else that we missed that you want to talk to the viewers about. Any other subject matter?
Well, we're going to talk a lot about schools and school safety. There's been a lot of concern about making sure that the kids at school in our public schools are safe. And there are a couple of ways to look at that issue. I want to look at it, and I think the people in my part of the state want me to look at it in terms of really making the school campuses, the school buildings more secure, and increasing, not decreasing, the number of school resource officers. Those are the uniformed law enforcement officers who are assigned to work at a school building, at a school campus. And I think we're going to be making the pitch to families all around the state that we need to harden our schools. We need to make them more secure, and we need to increase, not defund, the number of school resource officers that there are to make sure those kids are safe when they're in school. And we need the kids to get back to school. We want schools to be open. We want schools to be in person, and we want them to be safe. And that's going to be a big focus in the coming session or two.
Well, I'll tell you, the way things are going, that could be a whole show on that subject alone. I'm glad you're tackling it. All right, Jim. Well, we will have you back soon. Last question I got for you before you go. Do you see a path to the majority for the Republicans for the first time since 1994? Do you feel there's a path to the majority to get some balanced politics in this state?
I sure do, Kerry. I really believe it. And we are together. We are unified, and really working effectively. We have great people, great candidates in line to run for these legislative offices this fall, and we have the wind at our back. The people of Washington are frustrated with 830 plus days of an attempt at one-man government, and they want balance in Olympia. And we've got the plans, we've got the bills, we've got the initiatives, we've got the policy to give them that balance and that common sense. So I feel really good about it, Kerry. We need 9 seats in the State House, 4 in the State Senate, and I think we're in good shape to win those seats this fall.
Well, Jim, I sure hope you're right, because there's an awful lot of my friends looking at other places to live, and I just hate to see that exit out of Washington State. It's a marvelous state. It has all the right ingredients to lead the nation economically, and of course, some of these companies, we've got legacy companies, are marvelous. But we are squandering that opportunity, and I think it's up to you guys to get it back. So let's go get it. Make it happen.
We are going to push every button we've got, Kerry. It is a beautiful place to live. It's an excellent place to live, and we need to defend it and return it to its power and its glory.
Kind of a Restore Washington concept.
There you go.
Thank you, Jim. We'll see you very soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll be right back to wrap it up here on the 12th District. Well, there you have it. Representative Jim Walsh letting us know what's going on the coast and around the state. Jim has videos that he puts out every week answering questions from his own constituents. That's quite a nice service. They're available on restorewashington.org and a number of other websites. But he is getting 10 and 12 and 15,000 views on those videos every week. And we certainly enjoy hearing from him and getting a report from the other side of the mountains. All right, that's it for now. We're going to be following more candidates as we move forward. We're getting closer and closer to that primary election, which is coming up August 2nd. Ballots will be out in mid-July, so stay tuned for more business and politics here on the 12th District. I'm Kerry Condata. We'll see you next week.